Good dawning. I'm enjoying the theatre of this was done the other day, a couple of days ago before the before the two of them in the movie started having a bit of a spit with each other. So it's quite funny that I did this live a few days ago, and then getting people getting the shits with me when I'm saying it's all a show and they're all connected. So if you haven't seen that one, go back and have a watch. Just funny times. Watching the movie, remembering that it's okay to lie. It's okay to lie and deceive the public as long as it's for the good of the people. So it's okay to be movie actors. Oh, yuck, look at this. I dropped some tea on myself or something. It's okay to lie and deceive the actors, the people, as long as it's for the greater good of the country. Okay, so if you're watching that movie, if you didn't watch that one, go back and watch. If you've got the stomach for challenging your ingrained sort of belief, it's worth a watch, that one. But just funny timing, with the way that it panned out. I could see it sort of boiling up to the top, so I wanted to put it out there for people to be able to see. There's a lot deeper and darker things going on, and then of course, I got all the usual answers that Trump and Musk did a deal with the 200 generals in 2016 to change the world and repay their debt by tricking everybody into going back to vote. Sure. What I want to do here is I want to show you something, right? So, whenever I talk about the 5 principles of being able to fight this war, because it is a physical war, and I don't mean in the sense of we're getting bombed yet. It's getting bombed, I guess, is horrendous, the most horrendous thing that we can do on this planet, but you've got a rough idea where they come from. Doesn't mean you're able to stop it. You've got a rough idea where it comes from, whereas this war that we're in is more of an intellectual war, and it's pretty hard because so many overlapping psyops and psychology behind it, and all the layers that they did all the way through. So you've got to know how to fight. How to be able to fight, both physically and mentally, is based on the principles that we talk about energetically or spiritually, physically, intellectually, financially, and emotionally. So some days you'll see me talking energetically. I'm trying to train people to understand, what does grounding mean? What does conductivity mean? What does transmutation of energy mean? What is the the synthetic frequency interference with us? What does it mean, and how do we shield ourselves from that? Can we get crystals and things? Can we get things like that around us? That's rainbow fluorite. I use it anywhere where I have the electrical technology in front of me, around me. Can we use man-made things like the device the lady was selling the other day for the EMFs and stuff like that? But it's about understanding what is the problem, taking in, embodying the information, and then looking for the resolution. Now, the resolution should always come from inwards. The answers are inwards, but getting in there is hard. Okay, so there's a lot of energy, a lot of answers inwards energetically. There's a lot of ability to access a lot more, recourse from your brain. If you go, sorry, I haven't got any comments coming up. There's a lot more access to your whole system if you can tap into a true sort of energy, right? And good dawning to everyone jumping on. So the reason being was because if you go down a path for too long intellectually, you'll stay there because you'll get feel good there, so you'll take your sweet treat and stay there. And if you go down the financial path, you'll end up the CEO with all the money, and you'll stay there or you end up you go down the political, the physical route of being an athlete, plays golf all day, every day in golf competitions. You'll stay there, right? Or you'll go down the spiritual path where you just live the whole life of servitude to your Lord or love and light type area. It doesn't really matter where you go down these paths. If you go down there and spend all your time down there, you end up creating an imbalance in your life somewhere. You can deny it, you can ignore it, but I can tell you now, and I'll say this with great ease, that the biggest of the freedom fighting movement, the strongest, the loudest, the proudest, or the hardest working, not necessarily always loud and proud, right? The hardest working, the most diligent, are the most traumatized, right? So they're the people that have had the most deepest, darkest trust, issues with the system because somebody abused that system when they were younger. Maybe recently, but most likely on your way through. So one of my principles is emotional. And so we talk about energetic, spiritual, and spiritual's got nothing to do with downward dog or nothing to do with praising the Lord. I do not give any energy away to somebody else, right? This is a journey of self, right? And if you think that externally giving your power away to something that is internal works, you're wrong, right? It's part of the trickery of having you always project your consciousness out into their world, out into this constructed reality, right? Whereas if you wanted to truly give love or energy back to your creator, to your belief or whatever, at least try and do it inwards, right? At least do it through your heart space because that's where your connectivity truly comes from. So emotional, right? I've been saying to a lot of people, Damo, he passed away the other day. I don't have his permission of his family to talk about him. We worked together for a long time, and he's a good worker. People got along with him, but he was horrendously tormented by whatever he had inside of him, right? And he didn't know how to deal with it. And so he took his life just recently. So I would say rest in peace, but I understand what the recycling nature of this place is. And I'm pretty sure that he don't get to rest in peace if you haven't sorted your shit, sorted your demons out. So, this one's for you, Damo, if and wherever you are, because whether I liked you or not, you had a family, you had kids, right? And it's why I work as hard as I can in the background, teaching people emotional tools that I've used, not some shit that I learned out of a book, not some shit that I've perfected and I'm some sort of master. I still wake up in different warps of reality every day. Some days anxious, some days depressed, some days OCD, some days ADHD. I am still in the flux of flow, but the guy was a human. He was a good operator for all intents and purposes in the mining industry. He taught a lot of people how to drive a lot of equipment. They might not like him or they did like him, doesn't really matter. He's a human, and he took his life. And about 10 years ago, he was on the verge of doing that. And he had been told that he was going to lose his job because he just couldn't come to work. He was so erratic with his, he was a bit more of the fight or flight. He was a bit more of the flight mode. So both of us had chronic anxiety. Both of us had panic attacks, but he would run from it and he would smoke marijuana and that sort of stuff at home to calm it, which would make him useless at home for the greater purposes of being at home with his family. I was more of the fight, so I would run towards it and go to work every day, all day, every day, but I'd be lit up and I'd be angry and, and blunt and short with people and, I was a hard-ass leader for that whole time, right? I'd love to give to people that didn't stand in my way, but if you stood in my way, I fucking bulldozed you. I was a brutal leader. Brutal with my tongue, it's very sharp. And he would fluctuate in and out of those moments, right? One day he'd be just super happy and great guy, and the next day he'd be a really horrible little arsehole and nobody wanted to anything to do with him. He was about 6'4". He was about 6'4". He was a decent sort of sized boy, so it wasn't like many people wanted to argue with him. But his tale was one of chronic irregulation, just destabilised up and down, and self-doubt and self-worth. And we did a plan for him back then that he started to execute, and he was going all right. And then over the years, he burnt me a few times when in his moods, and I wasn't in the right headspace to stay with him either. But I definitely gave him all the pathways to look for the help that we had, And I don't know what the story was. I don't know what his tipping point was, but he apparently finished himself the other day. So sorry, Damo. Sorry that we slipped. Sorry that you slipped through the cracks, mate. You're not alone. The energy in this time and in this world is causing a lot of people to take that option, right? Now, I used to think you're weak, right? I thought weak people took that option. Man, the depths of despair that I went through with my mental health, depression and anxiety. These days, if I get one day of the anxiety that I used to feel, oh God, it feels like I'm, in hell. One day. I used to do it every day. I did it every day, every day for the last 4 years straight before I completely and utterly collapsed because I was trying to control it through this one, right? So, what's the point of this story? All right, so the point of the story is energetically we understand the interference of all of the shit that's coming through and what they do to try and control it. Then physically they poison us, and we play a part in poisoning ourselves. We love to whinge about them spraying the sky while we drink alcohol, the worst of the poisons that are known to us, and everybody straight away, trigger. I don't care what you do, but what I'm saying is it's hard to say that the system, you pull up at a takeaway shop, you pull up at the servo, eat any of that shit. No, we do. And then whinge about someone spraying you with heavy metals and stuff like that. And it's like, well, the other shit that you put into your body actually probably makes it nearly impossible if your liver and your kidney functions and that aren't working properly because of all of the other shit. And I've got heavy fat around my organs and that. They say that I've got, really bad visceral fat since I gave up drinking because I'm probably substituting with something somewhere. So I know my own demons, right? But it's hard. What it is it's hard to project all the time out there saying that everybody else is the problem when you know that there's things that you're actually doing yourself. Now you say, "Oh, that's my choice. I can do that," but it's not. It's just your body yearning for something that you're not able to understand what they want, or if you do understand what it is, you ignore it and you give it what you think you need in the moment, not forego it for the sake of the future. So, emotionally, I've been telling people, you need to do the work. My wife used to say to me, you need to do the work, Jody. And I'd be like, what work? Give me a list. Because, I'm a project manager type thing. Give me the list of things to execute and I will execute this list so well that people will be like, whoa, what an amazing job you did, Jody. It's, you really sorted it out. But I also, as a project manager, will delegate delegate that job to them and that. I'll work these people out and the timing. And she was like, no, it's just you. You just have to do this. And it's on you to do the work. And that's where most people get lost, right? Because they're like, me to do the work? Surely I can go to a psychologist. Surely I can go to a psychiatrist. Maybe I can just take some drugs and make it go away. If I don't want to do any of them, I'll mask the symptoms of the way that I feel through alcohol, drugs, party drugs, recreational drugs, cheating, gambling, whatever your escapism is basically trying to get away from your emotional state that's manifesting because of your energetic problems that shows up sort of emotionally as it passes through that filter into your reality, which dictates how your physical body takes the day. Really shitty energy, right, coming through, haven't transmuted it, heavy synthetic shit filters through to you emotionally. When you wake up, you're just off, you're not right, you feel wrong, right? And then physically how you react with the world, your senses for the day, is chronic dis-ease, that feeling of dis-ease, but your body starts not to be able to work properly because you're activating things we don't even realize that you're activating from the moment you wake up, right? Or you're walking around with your big trigger button on your chest because you haven't yet done the work. So police pulls you over, little tap on the trigger button, or you jump online and Jody says something about, Trump saving you, or Jody says, what's the point of voting? You're never going to vote tyranny out and touch that button. So if you're emotionally changed, if you're physically changed when somebody emotionally taps any one of your buttons, which most of us have got them covered all over us, we're easily triggered. Press a button and then watch us wind up and go. If you can control the physical response, then you probably already got control of the emotional response, and that probably comes from the energetic realm, all right? But I had to go inwards. I had to go inwards to work out what was going on. So the first thing I did was I did an energetic session with these people who were going to take me back on a journey to show me where my soul fractures were, where I had become less than pure. And it was an interesting pathway because at the time I was like, I hope they can't read my thoughts, because my thoughts are, this is bullshit. But I succumbed to it. I had hit rock bottom, so I was like, I've got to try something, right? I've got to do something for this. I've got to go inwards. I've got to try and understand and unpack me. Because I think the thing that most people say when they talk about trauma, and they say, oh yeah, I've dealt with that. And you've moved past that. And I'm like, yeah, because you can see the cycles of what takes them back to the same point. So they'll say that they've got it sorted, they'll start here, they've got it sorted, they've dealt with it, they can think about it, they move around, the same pattern continues, and then they back down. It might be 2 years, 5 years, but the cycle will repeat, right? Just depending on how big the loop is, you end up back where you are. Another cheating partner, another abusive partner, another conversation at work that caused anything, another fight at the pub, another run at the drugs that you thought you'd got rid of, and the loop comes back around. So what we're seeing at the moment with all of the energy and the interference is the tightening of that loop, right? So that cycle that you're not getting yourself out is tightening, so it's repeating quicker and quicker, which is why so many people are offset at the moment. But they took me back to two places. So if this is my energy, if this is my timeline, they took me back to two places, and they showed me where something had happened, in that timeline, at two different spots that had only allowed. And I'm just going to do it like that to sort of give you an idea of what sort of comes from the visual side of it, right? But they said, at birth, and I remember I'm writing in reverse, so if anything looks weird, it's because I've got to write in reverse because of this stupid app. But what had happened was they took me back to two places in my timeline. Somewhere around 3 years old, and somewhere around 6 years old. Right, so somewhere around 3 years old and somewhere around 6 years old, they started saying to me, there's fractures there in your soul's journey, your timeline, there's fractures there. And I didn't understand it, and it's taken me a while to digest it, but this is the best way that I'll explain it to you for this is the people. Now, most of the people out here don't think that they need to hear this today. You're wrong. You all need to hear it. But I'm happy for you if you're not at the stage yet that this will make sense to resonate with you or whatever. But just think about what this video could mean to someone someone who's acting emotionally or not quite having the energy when they come into this fight. They're still in that negative framework where it's all doom scrolling, and everything that they post is like, we're all gonna die, everyone's gonna kill us, everything's dead, they're all bad, they're all, mass depopulation, all of that sort of stuff, right? That's knowledge of what's going on, but it's part of this doom scrolling sort of methodology that you're feeding in your own brain, this sort of repeated need to tell everybody else that they're going to die so that you're not the only one that knows, right? It doesn't actually do anything really for waking more people up necessarily, because if you had the vaccinations, do you really want to watch a video about how you're going to die of a heart attack, die of a blood clot, die of anything along those lines? No, they'll more likely shove their head further into the sand if they already had it in there. So we've got to be able to bring them on the journey with us of saying, okay, it's a lot bigger than just this one event, right? This has been going on for a very long time. It's not just this event. It's a part of it, but... oh, I'm sorry. Might be COVID. I should get my RSV shot. Alright, so let's pretend like I was born with 100% sort of connectivity to my soul's purpose and my journey, and somewhere along the line, she told me that there was a massive thing at 3 and a massive thing at 6. This is what they told me to work on. They were the two biggest areas that they could see that I could sort of capture. Now, when I took myself back to those times, so through a concentrative state, I don't like meditating. Anything that starts with medi is probably not good for you. Medibank, Medicare, medicine, so I try and stay away from that. I try and sort of think about just concentrating, right? Just having myself in the moment. But I was able to remember, without the real work, I was able to remember these points in time that may or may not have seemed traumatic at the time. They were. But you can do that, right? Because this is the part of your front of your brain that says, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that part. Yeah, so that I can think about that, which means that it means that I've dealt with it. And you're like, well, no, it actually doesn't mean that. It actually doesn't mean that you've dealt with it. It just means that you've got your ego at the front of it, is able to just, take a little peek inside of the box of what you've got locked down in there. So it doesn't mean that you've dealt with it. It means that you've locked it away, but you're aware of it, possibly for learning reasons, right? So you can have a little peek in there, because remember that the ego, that control system up the front there, whoever's in control, mine was ego, but there'll be a strongest part of you that will be in control of that. So it'll be either the person that says, run, run, every time there's a fear situation of any sort. Your default will be run. You might not know it, but that it will be to back away. It will be to stay behind a private locked profile. It will be not to talk about this sort of stuff in the crib room at work. It will be to avoid conflict or confrontation, right? So that might be that's who's controlling the front part of your brain. The back part of your brain is where all the stores are locked, all the yucky shit is locked. So the moment might be able to be remembered, right, in that little box. This guy that loves to be in charge for me, the guy at the front, oh no, I pretty much know everything. Ask me a question and I'll be able to spit to the answer. And if I don't know that, then clearly you've just asked it the wrong way. Can't be anything to do with my knowledge, right? That's my front. That's the front bloke, right? That's why we tell him to shut up and try and wait 10 seconds to think, because we're trying to access some of the locks in the back. And he's always like, oh, what are you doing going back there? Just ask me. I've got the answers. And we're like, shut up, idiot. We need to go back and get some information from somewhere in the back. Okay, here's some filing systems of what happened. So that's what happens, right? When we talk about people about their trauma, they're likely to say that they can remember it. There's a guy, hopefully you watch this one, Brad. Hopefully this one is for you, mate. So your memory, for example, can remember the moments, okay? That's good and bad, right? You don't really want to remember the level of trauma, but I'm going to give you some base level stuff here, right? So the memory is coming from this part of here that's in control. He has to get himself to a workable point where he can still continue to move forward. It's like when you've got an injury, for example, my shoulder, I need to have a complete shoulder rebuild, take it out, take the bone out, cut the head off it, put a carbon fibre tip in there, so it's completely gone. That's my motion, that's my range of motion. So my body, when I think that I'm doing my gym weights, is like this. So my normal body is just up and down, up, and you can see the difference in my elbows, that my body has adapted. So I'm telling it to do the same thing on both sides, and it's doing what it's capable of. No pain, it's just restriction, right? And so your body starts to adapt to whatever the pain, whatever the trauma is. It says, we've got to do the job that this guy is trying to command us to do, pull on the levers. He's telling us to do this, but if we try to, something will snap, something will pop out, or something will cause pain. We don't want that. So it's trained itself, okay, for this guy just all like, let's still go to the gym. Let's keep going to the gym. Let's keep lifting heavy things. So he's up there, the idiot up there in charge, just pulling the levers, trying, let's go. And the rest of the body back here, the real system that looks after all of the cellular stuff, the breathing, the everything, right? Other than the, and the meat suit basic control, that's all we're in charge of up here. We forget about the fact that everything else has been done automatically for us, because if we were in charge of it, we'd fuck that up too. So it's worked. The body's worked around how to continue to function. So in trauma sense, your memory of things that might have happened will be the memory that's allowed to be here, which is just enough for you to be able to keep functioning. Okay, so you can remember the moment, but when we say you got to deal with it, people always say, "Oh yeah, I've dealt with it. I've sat with it. I've thought about it, and I'm good with it. I understand why it happened." Okay, so I thought that too, right? I thought that forgiving my stepdad after he died, I thought that I'd learnt more about him, I'd learnt more about his trauma, I'd learnt more about his life before I knew anything about it. And so I had forgiven him, and then you're still sort of you're not quite, it's not, you're not whole, you still got your own problems, you're still broken, and so this is what it was, right, for me. I had to go back there, because what had happened was, I had fractured off, and just because this is hard to draw, I'll just put a stick man there because I don't want to do it. So what I found was when I went back, when I was taking myself back to those moments, there was a part of me that was left here, right? Because he was too scared to go forward. Because he was stuck in a time at 3 years old. It was a memory of an argument between my mum and my stepdad, and it was probably no more or no less. It maybe even it's just a collection of that feeling at the time. I don't know whether it was really specific, but what I found was a version of me, a 3-year-old kid, sitting in fear. And when I focused on that person, when they focused on that kid sitting in fear between two things either side, the energy of them clashing into each other, and I'm stuck in the middle, right? I couldn't move. I couldn't go backwards or couldn't go forwards. That part of me, that little kid, was so terrified to move or do anything, it had stayed there, right? So I had moved on, as the timelines sort of makes you do. I'd moved forward, but less of me, because I had trapped myself in that moment. And then I had gone further to 6-year-old, and my mum had an aneurysm, and it took me to that spot. And when it took me to that spot, the memory of that came flooding back that hard. I had my phone here or something because I was laying down doing it remotely, and I thought my phone was catching on fire because of the heat that started coming through my chest as I was starting to access that box, right? As I started to go further into that box, because I had the memory of what happened to where I was. I knew that I could remember the time when Mum had an aneurysm and ended up in hospital for 8 months or something that I didn't get to see much of her, right? But I didn't understand what that did to actually in that box. So that started releasing, and that heat and fire sort of started coming out of that pain. I was like, holy shit. I'm looking at my phone thinking my phone was about to melt down. I thought my battery was going. But what I had done was I had, again, locked myself into a situation where I had fractured a huge part of me because I was terrified because I didn't have a dad. My dad had gone before I was born. I didn't know that till, well, I probably knew it then, true, subliminally understanding, but may not have been sat down and gone, Timmy, your dad's a loser, he's left, and now this is your stepdad. Nobody had ever done that, in my recollection. I reckon it was probably just more conversing, or even just that feeling of knowing, right? So, what I did was I had then identified that there was 2 points in my life where I had fractured myself off and they were still there. And so that's where I had to focus my energy and my intent in my concentration state to work on that emotional state. And so I used to have to, first part is identify where you have these fractures, right? So you think you can remember, but you're only allowed to remember the part of the box that you're allowed to look in, right? The control mechanism has to keep you moving forward, right? You have to keep functioning, you have to keep getting up, and you have to keep, you have to keep going, right? So, so the control, for me, that is the ego took control, because ego is such a dirty word because it's misused like most of the words, but it's like, it was my protector. It was like, everything needs to come through me, mate. I'm the bouncer, so anything that's going to come in, come see me, mate. I'm the bouncer. Yeah, I'm just going to sit here like this and make sure that everybody that comes into my space, into my realm, I'm going to be the bouncer. So that's what the ego did. And the more people tried to attack or get hurt on me, the more I sort of responded. Hurt people. So I would just basically walk into a room and attack someone verbally, straight off the bat. Every time you see me, it'll be some sarcastic shoot or something to try and get people to look at them, and then the attention's off me. It's a response system, right? So I had come down here, and who knows what your trauma is, like the level of trauma. For me, this might have only been 80%. It might have been 80% that went forward, and it might have only been 10% of me and 10% of me of my soul source, of my soul source energy, right? I'm trying to do it in such a way that it's not higgledy-piggledy, but I'm trying to put you into a place where you feel comfortable to realise that the work that you still have to do is to be able to go back to those moments in trauma where you think that you've dealt with it, that you think that there's there, and also be ready to deal with the pain, right? Because you've got it locked up. And I've seen a young bloke that went to a psychiatrist, The psychiatrist basically just unlocked that, threw the thing open, and all the pain came out of when his uncle and his dad were drugged off their tits, and they had held a gun, pulled a gun out to him, and sort of was pretending to like put him under the pump, saying, "Oh, you little pussy, what are you scared of the gun? What are you scared of the gun?" And he had peed his pants, right? And I found this poor bloke at work, a wonderful kid at work, crying, having to relive this memory, right? Because someone had unlocked that box without giving him the skills or the ability to deal with it. They're just like, oh, throw the box open, here's the key, and the box is open, and now all the shit's out. But the tools weren't there in the place, and the strength wasn't there in place, and the support wasn't there in place to make sure that they could understand what they had to do with that information. He probably rapidly got better after that release, but it's not the way to do it, right? You don't want to release it and then just have it out of control, right? That feeling of out of control is instantly where more ego will, get out of the road, it's out of control, I'm back on the levers, yeah, I let you, all you soppy little puffs, you bloody emotional sooks, and your sadness and your happiness, all you people pull the levers, look what happened, we can barely go to work, and we're arguing with everybody, they let me back to control because I gotta go. That's a horrible memory, right? And the same as some of the other people that tell me some of the horrible things that, people that have been abused by adults and by children, and people have been, bullied to the point of suicide. People have been, starved or drugged or no love or, beaten, all the different things, right? Or they're all there, and they're all there for you to be looking forward to go back to. But so what I did was I had to learn when I'm way down here by now, right? There's more for sure, all the way down to the point where I'm probably running at 5% efficiency by the time I'm broken. I'm just done. I just don't want to go further anymore. I don't want to go forward anymore. I do not want to live the rest of my life at 5%. I'm done. I'm like, time to check out. I was, getting to the point of thinking about suicide. I talk about suicide like prostitution. Always knew it was an option, just never thought I'd be desperate enough to take it. It changed my life empathetically to understand that even the strongest will, the strongest mind, no matter how far he goes forward, when he keeps getting fractured because he doesn't know how to go back and heal, he will eventually run out of its connection to soul source energy, right? And the meat suit will basically start breaking down. You'll start emotionally just being completely devoid of anything, because you start shutting down everything that is a filter to what we're here for the 5, for these emotional feelings, for the discernment, for our empathy, for our intuition, from the intent of our mouth, the vibration, the frequency that we bring. We have to start shutting all of those systems down, because just like a house that has, not got mains power anymore, mains power, every time we have a power interruption, we might be able to have a generator and run on a bit of dirty old, Chinese generator energy. And so what do? We've got to shut down parts of our house. We've got to shut down air conditioning systems. We've got to shut down all the things that we can't run on that energy, right? So we can't be vibrant. We can't be happy. We can't be social. We can't be loving. These are the worst things, but they're so energetically tied to us that we have to start shutting those systems down. Right? We need to start turning those systems off, because we want to make sure that we've got enough energy to get through the day, to just function, to exist. And because mostly for men, now men are like, oh, we've got to get up and go to work and pay the bills for our family. That is what we are on this planet for, to look after our family and go to work. So we have to spare every last minute. If we walk out the door going, fucking, whatever, to your wife, whatever, I'll go to work, and the kids, another friggin' mess, doesn't matter to us, because we've saved our energy. We've got no energy for love or empathy. We've got no time for anything in the world. We can't emotionally feel anything anymore. It's all about just doing the thing that we're supposed to do, which is get up and go to work, not fix ourselves or heal ourselves or anything along those lines. I'm just trying to get me comments up, because it's freaking hate it when they do this, when they won't give me my comments. So to Yura said, I told my sister of an event when I was 4 that concerned her. Sorry, all these comments are coming back later. They're not coming through. 100%, yeah. Yeah, Blair, I get it, mate. I'll keep talking. To be able to leave your body, do you have to clear the trauma called recapitulation when you go back? Sorry, I'll read that one later, mate. It's a bit too deep for me. Otherwise, I'll get off track. So you see the pathway that I'm trying to build, right? Is that acceptance of the fact that you might be able to have a little look in the box and think that you know what it was that caused you some trauma is unlikely to be the actual resolution of it. So I had to spend most of my concentrated time in a frame way of taking myself back to those moments to be able to. I didn't know what I had to do. Nobody was really there to guide me. You can go online and get guides and that sort of stuff, but I'm wary of people that help you connect to things energetically, because that's how portals are open. That's what spirits in alcohol means. It's always connections to energy, and they control the basic level of astral energy here. That they have the control of the overlay. That's what the matrix is. It's the synthetic grid of sort of energetic control to having pure connection to that source. So they make it very difficult from there. And now all of this trauma and stuff like that doesn't have to be necessarily nefarious or them or anything like that. It's just if you interfere enough with the pure blueprint, the divine blueprint, if you interfere enough with what it is that we're supposed to be here for, I don't know what it is. You'll have your opinion, right? But if you interfere with that enough, then systems start failing, and then all the way we're just seeing hundreds and hundreds of recycles of just more and more trauma, more and more karma, more and more failures, and just we end up this weird operating system of whatever it is will be. What it is. So I'm down here at 5%. I got nothing left to give. I'm like, one more thing. My wife has just had enough with dealing with me. I'm so short. I'm so blunt. I love my wife, but I couldn't even feel that I love my wife. I knew inside somewhere that I love my wife, but there was no I love my wife. It was all like, I'm working hard. She had a full-time job. She worked 5.5 days a week, and I'm working a 5 and 5 roster. I'm like, oh God, I've got 5 days off. She's got 1.5 days off, and madness. You know what I mean? Like, just madness to be projecting so much pain onto her, and my children are like tiptoeing around me all the time. But I'm like, I love my children. I do anything. I work hard for my children. Yeah, whoop de frickin' do. Paycheck. You're a paycheck, bro. That's all you've got to give at 5%, right? That's all you've got to give. You've got to work it out. Or other people will be flight mode more, and they'll be more loving, and they'll still be more caring and nurturing with their families, but they always having days off because they can't get themselves to go to work because they don't want to be emotionally around these types of people that take the energy from you, right? So they're the opposite. They're better at home and more loving and more caring, but they don't have that drive to have money and buy houses and do subdivisions and all the shit that I was doing, right? So fight or flight. Always the trigger in fight or flight. So in my concentrated state, I had to go back to these points, and I have to. This one, for example, I remember the vision of what I was having was 2 people screaming horrible energy at each other, and the little kid basically sitting down in between that energy, and it was horrible. It was violent, and the little kid didn't trust me because I didn't know who I was. That I didn't know who this person was. Look at this big fat hairy bloke coming here to say everything's going to be okay. Who am I to say everything's going to be okay? So I had to convince myself that was that everything turned out all right, that we're going to be safe, that we live a wonderful life, and that you should join it, because staying back here in the past is not thinking that something that you need to do. It's okay. We don't need to live in fear, because that goes away, right? And we're stronger together to deal with it. We're staying here and just reliving this moment all the time in that trapped, locked in energy. So I built a dome over the top, an energetic dome over the top of this child, and I started playing soccer. I finally got myself to believe that I was trustworthy, and I started playing soccer with the kid, with myself. Started playing soccer with the kid. I liked soccer when I was a kid. So these 2 idiots are still there. I can still see them, but I can't feel them anymore. I can see this energy of this red roaring energy at each other, but I've protected the child from it. I'm just going, it's okay. we can move forward. And so I got to the stage where I would go there and visit that child, build rapport, say it's okay. And then I had to do the same with this, because at 6-year-old, I remember I'm at the bowls club, I'm getting lied to, I'm sure it's like 7 or 8 o'clock, but people are rushing around everywhere, they're whispering things, it's weird, something's going on, they're giving me more soft drink and chips at that time of the night, I don't understand, that's not usually how it goes. It was weird, right? I knew something was going on, and then I hear something about my mum, right? My mum's collapsed, I think maybe in the toilet or something like that. She's had an aneurysm. It had already killed her auntie and her sister. I didn't know that at the time, but, you know, you understand the reason why so many people, and they didn't know what that was then, but, you know, afterwards I get this, you know, constant story of, you know, everyone else in the family has died from this, you know, it's a historic thing, blah, blah, blah. They managed to work it out and get it to Brisbane Hospital. We lived out in Aramac, town of 100 people, out past Longreach, right? So somehow they managed to get her into a plane, get her down to Brisbane, and they save her life. But for 6 or 7 months, I'm just completely destroyed because I've built myself this persona that I only have my mum, right? So down to here, I'm dealing with this here. Again, locked in. Now, all it is just a moment in time where I'm trapped in that moment. Just so fearful to go forward because in that moment, I just fracture. I break and go, shit, I'm on my own. I don't have a dad. You know, I've got this guy that loves to yell and scream and carry on. He's filling in. I don't have a dad. So without my mum, he's not there. He's not going to take on the responsibility. He's only there because of mum. Right? He's not there because of me. That's not his journey, it's not his burden, right? So here is a massive fracture. They tell me, these people say, this is dark. This is heavy dark. She said, this is where you almost fracture off that much that this almost becomes the new timeline, right? It almost fractures off that much that only 20, maybe only 20 goes that way, but, maybe 70, maybe 70 goes on a new timeline. So this is my interpretation of what a timeline looks like, right? Therese said, can I change my cover photo, mate? Mate, please. If that's what you take from an emotional talk about suicide and that sort of stuff, you're more worried about that, then you should probably listen to this more than anybody, because clearly you're not concentrating if you're worried about the photo of Albanese making you feel sad. Jesus. Righto, so I'll try and keep on topic so that people can get what they need to get out of this, so that you didn't turn it into the post about you. Sorry, mate, but that just shits me to tears when people talk about sort of shit when I'm talking about this. Right, so 70, so that could have been a new timeline. So when people talk about timelines, right, they talk about timelines, right? So they talk about, oh, you've changed your timeline. You can change your timeline by positive thoughts, by positive affirmations, by manifesting and that sort of stuff. I agree, right? I understand that sort of stuff, but what it is it's also how you get onto that timeline, how you get onto that train track, right, is depending on how much of you fractures off. So I'm probably more realistically, I fractured off here and I probably stayed on that timeline of thinking. From that point, I had to have my ego had to be in charge, and I had to build a shield up over my heart. Right, so I had to build this big shield over my heart and start saying, no, but I can't feel like that anymore because I can't function like that anymore. I don't want to. I'm on my own. If my mum goes at any time in my life, I'm on my own. So I better learn how to knuckle up. And I don't mean physically, like I was a weak little fat kid. I mean like what tool that I had. I had my mouth to keep people away from me. I was verbally quick-witted, and I'd get beaten up for it, but the nickname that I gave them lasted longer than the bruises that they gave me. So they knew that if they wanted to mess with my verbal things, I'd say something that other people would laugh about it, and that would go on wherever they went, whereas my bruises would be with me, right? So it didn't matter if they beat me up. I had my words. As I got older and got bigger, then I used to be able to do a couple of these every now and again, but not often. But you understand what I'm saying is that you fracture and break those timelines where you leave access to part of you behind, and that's where we end up getting to the less than. So the point is what do you think your number is down here? What do you think that you are operating on truly down here? And how much of that is supplemented? Because what I've found is that this is where you'll see the supplementation of This is the beer, right? This is the cup of coffee. This is the drugs. This is the drugs. This is all of the stuff down here that in a 3D world we have to supplement our lack of energy to have this here. And our lack of energy, because this is a baseline, right? Our energy ends up looking like this because we aren't running a pure energy source in here. We're running on spikes and dips and spikes and dips. So alcohol, spike, Friday night you should go home, go to bed, have a sleep. Instead, you'll drink alcohol, stay up later, way later than your body wants to, and it's already tired and run down, but you'll drink alcohol because you want to stay up late to have some fun because your week's been long and tiresome, right? Right, so you have a spike, and then Saturday you have a double dip because you're down here because you used energy that you didn't have, and now you feel like shit, right? And so you'll start feeling a bit better, and you'll give yourself a sugar rush or a pizza or something that might make you feel a little bit better to have a few more beers on Saturday. But you understand, come Monday, you're caffeinating yourself, caffeinated soda, all the different things like that. You might be having pain pills, might be popping a antidepressant or something like that. But whatever it is you're doing, all you're doing really, I believe, is substituting whatever energy that you're missing from down here. You're using the external world, and worse still, what I find is that even love becomes some sort of transactionary thing. So even when you're standing with your loved one across from you, the love that you're giving them is only equal to the love that you're able to receive back, because you're both trying to outsource your own energy. So you're stronger when you're around them, but that's because you're actually taking their energy, and they're stronger, and so you end up this I give you 20, you give me 20 type relationship, which sort of feels good because it's external energy coming to you, but it's because of the yearning of self that you actually look for someone to fill that hole in your chest. Look for someone to energize you in your day. Look for the job that makes you feel like more of a human. Look for the new toy that makes you feel like you're loved and your heart's doing well and you're doing a good job. Look for the loved one or the friends that would, fulfill you, people say, or make me whole. Yeah, that's right. You're less than whole because you haven't dealt with the fractures that got you down to this point down here. So finding 95% of things in the 3D world to supplement being whole is how we have this consumerist world. That's what the consumerism, I believe, is. The consumerism is that constant need to supplement whatever that is. Whatever number that is, you need to supplement that, right? And so for drugs, we don't want to have this. So drug people try and bounce like this without having lows by keeping themselves drugged because they don't want to feel like this because it's so far to fall. So that's why it's constant drug or constant alcohol, or something like the antidepressant. They wanted me to take 200 milligram antidepressant to make me stay here, but it's like I can't feel anything. It's just like numb to the entire world, right? So the challenge for us is, first, I believe, work it backwards, is how much natural energy have you got, right? Because people always say, how do you do what you do? Up until recently, full-time job, 20 acres, running a couple of companies, with homes, helping with the homeschooling, doing all this live, doing the research and that sort of stuff, looking after me, trying to grow our own food, all of the things that we do, organise rallies and that sort of stuff. How the freaking hell do you do what you do? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to get as close as I can to 100% source energy, right? I'm trying to make that sine wave. I'm trying to make my my thing like this. I'm trying to be very conscious of that energy. I'm trying to build this back up, trying to get this to go up while removing these things. 2 years without alcohol. Caffeinated soda. Yep, I used to have 3 or 4 cans of that during the day as well as coffee, right? 2 years without caffeinated soda. So now it's a cup of coffee in the morning when I first wake up. Still dog shit. Still just blocking out receptors to say that I didn't get enough sleep and I should go and lay back down more and rest more. Instead, I'll get up and get ready to do a live at this time in the morning, right? So I've got to try and, realise that that's still doing this. I got rid of all of the Western medications. Like I used to eat Nurofen Plus for my pain because of all my body. I used to eat them like Tic Tacs. I don't have any of them anymore. Panadol for headaches and that sort of stuff. Once a year if it gets to the point where my head's going to explode or something along those lines. It's more water, preventative maintenance, so that you don't need to respond to it. No codral cold and flus or anything along those lines. Trying to eat the food that I need to have to not get caught into these frequency things. They're not diseases. They're not viruses. They're just disease with frequency. So my last thing that I've got standing there is that 25ml antidepressant tablet that is like a little safety blanket for me, because they reckon it can't do anything at that level. And I'm like, well, I wig out when I don't have it, so I couldn't give a shit. I'll take it. I'm better off operating at 95% because of that tablet helping me, right? But the real thing was, every time I'd gone back and started working on these things, I was actually able to, I used to go back and take them after a while they trusted me enough to go for a fly, right? We would play games and sports. So I played lawn bowls over here, we're at the bowling club, played soccer over here. I built that protection for them so that they felt calm and safe. This all sounds a bit weird and it sounds higgledy-piggledy, but it's you can build it in your own construct it whatever way you want, right? You can build whatever you need to do to be able to be the person that can give yourself to go back and unlock that trauma, right? Unlock it, deal with it, say that it's okay. Because remember, you don't have to go back and deal with the physical pain of it, the emotional stress or whatever. You're just you're just trying to convince that kid that they can come forward. Okay, so it's not about just dealing with that pain, right? It's about letting that pain go, because you think that going back and talking about this stuff is going to deal with it, which therefore means it's things. So your ego's going, fuck off, bro. Don't go back there, bro. Nah, I've got it under control, mate. Yep, nah, I've got the box here. All good, I'm under control. Don't go back there. Yeah, no, don't need to, mate. I've got it all sorted. Yeah, we can think about that. I remember that time, and I remember this time over here. Got it sorted. And it's like, no. Fucking shut up, dickhead. I'm telling this little kid that he can come on the journey of life with us, because it's okay. He's reliving that pain over and over. He's stuck in that moment. That's an energetic blockage in your system. That is a loop it is a knot in your power cord, which creates heat and resistance in an energetic flow. That heat and resistance causes probably causes my emotional distress of not being able to do what I like to do as a physical person. Can't even fight anymore. Can't even throw a straight bloody right. But probably that energetic blockage came through into dis-ease through neck tension, grinding my teeth with stress and anxiety, and now I have a dysfunctional body because of a dis-ease, which is arthritis, which probably comes from all of the supplementation over to here, to alcohol and drugs and all the things that you do to yourself, because you're running on low energy, when the goal should be to come back up to here and get back 10, right? Because this kid, he ended up coming with me on the journey and move forward. And so my soul source energy starts unlocking knots and starts allowing that energy to flow again to get me closer back up to here. So I might have, I've unlocked, by doing that, I sort of like got myself back up a little bit on my own 2 feet, and I got to 15 because I took back 10. And then I remember taking for a fly. You can do whatever you want when you're in a concentration state, right? You're out of your meat suit. You don't have to be, you're not bound by the laws of physics in your meat suit. You can do whatever you want in your energetic body, right? In your memory. So you can do whatever you want. I've said, want to go for a look, we'll go for a fly. And I remember flying quite often with them, just taking them for looks and just trying to feel good, trying to build rapport, trying to make them feel happy, trying to make them feel it's okay. And then one day I remember being in such a calm state with them, and both kids, as they were holding on to me, just melted into me. And I remember looking down and they were gone. And I felt the warmth of embrace of them coming back into me. And I was like, it was the weirdest feeling of something tipping into what you thought was a full jug, and it doesn't overflow. And you realise it's not a full jug. You realise that it's filling back up what was taken away from you and stuck there. So I managed to, I don't go there anymore. Like when I go there, there's nothing. When I think about it, there's nothing. All right. So when I think about that, I go, I know that I get down to here. Now there's still lots more to deal with to get myself back up. But I know for a fact that I now got myself. Is that 25? I don't know what the hell number that is now. No. I know that part. Was that at 25? 25, right? Let's say that was 5 and I was nearly suicidal. So I know that I went, that was 10, that was 20, and that built me back up to say, holy shit. And so because I started building myself own energy back up, I was like, well, I can get rid of the alcohol if I wanted to, because that's playing part of it. I can reduce this drug down to the point where it's nearly not necessary. I can stop having to, do things the way that I react, because I was realizing that when do most people want to work on their trauma or when they're feeling anxious or whatever, this is where they go to the doctor. This is where they want to talk about it to people. This is when they go to the psychologist or psychiatrist when they're feeling like shit. This is when they put on a song where it's like 432 hertz and 779 90 because they're on their way down, right? They're in the moment, right? And it's incredibly difficult. This is when people see that you're having a massive anxiety response or a depressive mode or something like that. That's when they want to talk to you. Well, guess what's happened when you're anxious and depressed? All your blood's left all of your other organs, and you've got your adrenal glands are going nuts, and it's pumping all the blood to the part of up here. This guy. It's pumping all that blood to the control because it thinks that you're having a tiger response. It thinks that there's a tiger in the room about to attack you, so it's taking all of your energy and pumping it up into there. And so people are trying to interact with you saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And your ego's like, get out of the road. There's a tiger. Or is it you? Are you the tiger? Are you in my way? I'm going to attack you. You're the problem. Get out of my way. You're the problem. And they leave. Oh shit, no, I still feel like this. It must be something else. And so you're constantly on edge trying to fight it. And so most people do the work here, right? They come to me, they message me, they tell me they're feeling bad, they're telling me they're having a bad run, they're telling me they feel like shit. I'm like, yeah, that's because when you've got energy, you want to play sport, spend it with mates, go to the footy, drink some beers. You want to burn that energy, and then once you go past that threshold, you want to whinge about the fact that you don't have any. So I say, I had to stop going out late, stop watching the football for a time. In the end, I never went back. But I had to curve my use of my energy here so that when I started having these moments, I would curve how deep my depression would be, because I would be lucky enough to not have to, I wouldn't have to go so low because I didn't use so much of the high. Now, it sucks when you feel good if I'm feeling great, to go and sit out on the grass. I've got shit to do, right? I've got energy. I've got shit to do. I'm going to play sport, going to catch up with my friends, have a barbecue, whatever. But to stop and be mindful enough to go out and sit on the grass and listen to that frequency, right? To calm your body and take the moment to concentrate, to go back to get these remnants of yourself to make. You don't want to do that when you're feeling good. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to go and see the psychiatrist or psychologist. In fact, when you do go, if you've got an appointment and you go there, it's like, oh yeah, not much to talk about today, actually. I'm feeling really good, yeah. And they're like, yeah, but we want you to keep unpacking. Oh yeah, I know, but it's pretty much solved now. Yep, got it done, because who's talking? This guy. Yeah, no, I'm in control, remember, don't doubt me. I've been in control for a long time. Yeah, I'm in charge, I'm the man, it's all good. Stand out of the way, I've got it sorted. And they're like, no, you need to work on this now while you're feeling good, right? And that's the trap, right? That's that trick of that whoever's in charge of you saying, no, it's okay, I've got it sorted. Because that's its job. Its job is to try and make sure that you can operate in the environment around you. Its job is to perceive the 5-dimensional senses that you can see, like what you can touch and that sort of stuff. But its job is to react to that, right? Because it believes it is in control, but how is your little toe on your left foot? Did you just wiggle it? Did that make you wiggle it? Well, it's probably because it was always okay. It's warm enough, or it's whatever it is, it's comfortable, it's not broken, it's not in pain, right? And it was talking to the back part. It just checks in all the time, constantly sending 20, 30,000 signals, a second back and forth. This operating system back here is just going at it, yeah? And this one up the front here is like, now it's conscious, right? No, mate, I'm in charge with that. I knew that it was all right. No, I've got it under control because I'm the ego, mate, and nothing gets by me, mate. Yeah, look, I've checked on it. It's all good. I can wiggle it. Look, I'm wiggling it. See? I'm in charge of it. No, you weren't, dipshit. You're just so stupid. The front part of our brain is just so stupid that it thinks it's in charge of everything. But the real truth is much deeper, right? This real facade that we build of this little frontal bit of how we respond and the information, that's where they indoctrinate us, right? That's where they feed us subliminal conscious, this conscious programming into our head. It's the way that we respond, the words that we use, the people we interact with is all part of this programming in the front. Because I do you would have heard it before, but I used to do it in the culture training when I'd say, what do you call a Muslim on the moon? And the whole room of, executives from Brisbane and that would be like, I'd say an astronaut, right? Because fundamentally you're not racist. Barely, most of you have never had a violent interaction with a Muslim per se. Some might, if you live in the cities or whatever. But what I'm saying is the first answer that comes to your mind, which is usually something nefarious, usually something bad, well, that's been put there. Not through personal interaction, not through living in a country where the Muslims have done something to you. It's what the world has taught you to believe in when you think of a Muslim. When you think of expanding, taking over the whole world, and beating women in the streets, and blowing up everybody, and unit bombers, and that sort of stuff. You've made a decision of somebody and of a whole race of people, or a whole religious ideology, based on not personal experience. That's how easily programmed this front of our brain is, right? So that's how easily we make a decision culturally, or triggeredly, emotionally, energetically, because we are now trained by the system to override that, because our heart is blocked by this shit. Our heart is blocked by that the shielding that comes over the top of our heart is not allowing us to make empathetic decisions. So we make compulsive, quick, unthought out decisions for the benefit of self-ish, right? Because we are self-ish by nature up here, and we are consumers by nature down there. So we are selfishly making decisions because it's not our core belief. This guy's in charge too much. He makes all the decisions quickly and rapidly because he's got to prove that he knows everything and he's in charge. Now remember, this is me, right? This is me unpacking me, real trauma, real journey, right? Real conversation. It's not just to say you have to be this, right? This is the construct that I made to start building a pathway back to being able to operate on that percentage, right? And we know we probably won't get close to that because of that layer up there that we talk about. That's the interference of the matrix's, veil that they have. They deliberately interfere with all the frequency and technologies and all of the 5Gs and Wi-Fi's and satellite signals and, Bluetooth and everything that's going through us at the moment that just energetically just puts us out of sync. The Schumann resonance is always getting attacked and interfered with through HAARP and CERN. You've got the sun coming in, which is great if you know how to transmute it. But again, if you're energetically locked or blocked with knots in your rope, you're going to have energy flow through that cord, but it's going to create heat and friction and push forward emotionally and then into disease, right? So it's a multi-layered thing, but you won't be able to fight in this battle. You will not be able to keep fighting unless you supplement that energy source. So if you want to fight at 100% in this fight, which none of yous are, don't care. None of yous are able to fight at 100%. You're not giving 100%. I'm not even close to 100%. I know how much more yet that I can unlock, heal, and how much more trauma work I've got to do, right, to get it. So if this is me operating at 50%, fucking game on at 100. You know what I mean? So you're likely to be at a low percent. It might be 50 with me. It's not an ego thing at this point. I'm not telling you that I'm working harder. What I'm telling you is that you will be able to operate at a higher percentage. You might only operate at the same percentage, but you'll be doing it through true source energy from reconnecting that and get rid of that weight that you carry, and then you'll be able to get rid of some of the supplementation things over here, right? Some of the shit that's over here that you feel like making it possible for it, you can start getting rid of them so that you might only end up at 25%. You're already at 25%, you're paying a lot of money, you're doing harm to your body, you're poisoning it realistically to operate at that level. You might be able to get rid of that, and you're still at 25%, so you don't have any more time or energy, but it's yours, right? You're not vampiring it from a loved one, you're not vampiring it from a friend, you're not vampiring it from just self-gratification about how good you are at work. You're not taking it from the supplementation of sups and alcohols and drugs and that sort of stuff. So you're truly operating at 25%. And you're like, all right, well, I don't want to operate at 25. I want to get to 50. All right, well, let's go back. Let's go back and start looking for what it is that's holding you out on your timeline from being whole again. What is it that you think up here that you've got under control from a memory that's really just locked in that box and having a peak? Because old mate over here is like, yeah, you can have a peak, right? What is it that you've got to do to go there? And what work do you have to do to prepare yourself to be ready to go there? Because throwing that box open doesn't necessarily, it's not a fun thing, right? You need to understand what you want to do and what the purpose of what you're doing, and you need to be comfortable. So you might need a guide, you might need a network, you might need a friend, a community to help you sort of deal with it. You might need a moment in time where you just know that you're going to be emotionally unable to deal with other people's bullshit, including work. So again, what do we do when we go on holidays? We finally have the break that we need. Do we have a mindfulness holiday and deal with all of our stuff here and drink clean water and detox and that sort of stuff? Nah. Let's get pissed, do some, go on the boat, go on the motorbike, shoot some shit, and then we come back and we're down like this for the next bloody 6 weeks at work after we finish a holiday. Or worse still, we live in a time where everything that we do is we're trying to get rid of every day by wishing it away, looking forward to what's coming up. Oh, Monday. Oh, God, can't wait for the weekend. I just want 5 days of my life to just be gone. Don't think about it. Just don't even operate. Just switch off. 5 days of my life to be gone so that I can get to the footy at Macca's on Saturday. Macca's got the footy on the big screen. Lucky bastard's got a bloody big pool out in his backyard. We're going to be sitting around drinking beers watching that. Fuck Monday, fuck Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fucking half day Fridays. Okay, I don't want to do any of those days. Don't want anything to do with them. I just want to waste those days so I can get to one day. What sort of a world is it that we don't want to even think about remotely enjoying or partaking in a day or the joys or gratitude of each day to get to a day? That's where we're at, right? That's the world of consumerism. That's the world of external gratification, verification, that we need something to fill our bucket, right? We need something else to fill our bucket. So we're constantly looking for something to fill our bucket. And life is hard, and in this meat suit, it's heavy, it's dense, right? So all of the things that I said before, that we have no constraints, there's no physics that constrain us when we're outside of our meat suit. We can create the energy bubbles, we can fly with the children that I was talking about, we can integrate them back into our system in our mind because it's a construct of what we are capable of doing. But yet, because we can't do that on the ground, what do? We allow them to build all of the things that we can do outside of the meat suit. So we allow them to build the virtual reality world where we can go in there and be whatever we want, do whatever we want. You can do that. You can do that through your own mind. You know what I mean? Like, you can go where you want and be what you want through your own mind. Why not train you to access that which is possible inside yourself? No, because they need to build it out in front of you so that you can pay for access to that which you already have. You can fly in your own mind, but you want to fly in their plane. You can use telepathy to talk to each other without a device, which is how my wife does energetic work, right? She can remotely sync into people, but we have to pay for a phone and a phone service to be able to take my voice and put it into your head, wherever you are in the country or the world that's watching this, right? But we paid for it, so technology exists. We have no idea how it takes my voice and my face and takes it invisibly to somewhere and shoots it at the speed of light to reconstruct it perfectly into the sound in my face, so that when you run into me in the street, it's nearly exactly the same face and sound as what it is walking down the street. Why? Because that technique comes from our yearning ability to do it with outside of the meat suit. All possible to be done without being trapped in here. So the point isn't to just free the meat suit so that you can just jump in and out like a surrogate. The point is that they love to have us fill our cup with shit that we buy, and the more we buy, the more work we have to do in their slave-based system, and the more work we do in the slave-based system, the more we have to supplement our energy to do the other things that we like to do. Consumerism loop. So you just in the loop, in the loop, in the loop. But unfortunately, the further you go down the timeline, the more of these, the more breakups you've had, the more friends that you fight with, the more loss of family, the more physical disease. So when you finally get down to the bottom here, whether you're 30 or 40 like my workmate that I just talked about at the start of this, that took his life, suicided himself out. Wherever you get to the point where you've got no more fucks to give, your bucket of fucks is empty, right? You just can't give any more, right? Wherever you get to, you might get to 1, and someone grabs you and just takes you in, fully medicates you, 99% medicated, guilt to the gills, just all medication. So you're up and sort of running again. You're like, oh yeah, I'm good. Because why do you think that we don't need beers and supplementation when we're kids, right? Because we're running at a lot level. We're running at a hot level. Oh God, I'd love to have the energy of those kids. It's not energy. It's timeline fractures. It's disconnection from source, right? We don't have that when we're kids. We don't have those fractures and those breaks as much as that. So it's a lot easier to have the energy as a kid, right? And so that's the journey, right? The journey is to how long and how much work you have to do to continue to make sure that you take all of this energy with you, so that you don't just leave all these remnant things in the past where you're stuck and traumatized. Because the trap is, on death is, oh, you've got karma to pay. Well, you've got karmic debt to pay, or you've got unfinished business. Yeah, that's right, because it's all trapped in here, so that sort of recycle you back into it. 100% possibly is what we were created with, right? Interference causes us issues to really understand that and acknowledge it. Indoctrination takes it away from us. We're told from a little baby, we read storybooks. Why would an animal read storybooks why would a lion read a storybook to a cub about rainbows and unicorns and fairies and rabbits and Easter bunnies and things? There's no need for that if they're going to teach them how to survive in the wild, right? But what we do is we mollycoddle them with these fake tales of beauty and mysticalness, of this connection, of this boundless limits of being able to fly and being able to do magic and be able to do anything you want, right? Right up until about 5 or 6 year old, when the indoctrination school kicks in. And then we have to start winding that shit in, because we want those kids to not be weird. We have to wind all of our lies in and say, hey, that was just all a bunch of horse shit. Mummy and Daddy, who tell you never to lie, have lied to you for the last 5 or 6 years about all of this shit, right? Because we now need to remove all that blueprint of love and possibility and reality of our meat suit projection. We've got to wind that back. Otherwise, you're going to be a freaking weirdo, because all of the other kids have had their shit unwound, because now we've got to start the indoctrination school where there's only one answer, the answer. You can't think for yourself. You can't believe in mystical things anymore. It's all about just meat suit, go to school at 9 o'clock and finish at 3 o'clock. At lunch, you will eat at 1 o'clock, and this is the food that you will eat, because other kids might have a nut allergy, and there's a kitty litter over there for you to piss in if you think that you're a cat. This is the uniform that you must wear, and you must be exactly like a robot, and at the end of it we will make a decision for the rest of your life whether you will be a smart robot and go to do more indoctrination, or you will be a dumb robot and go and clean out the shit pans of somebody else because they told you that you're stupid, right? Or you might not be able to be dumbed down that much, or you might not be able to indoctrinate it that much, and you might end up in your own busyness, yeah? So the people that can think for themselves end up in the busyness when they have no time to be listening to shit like this and doing their work, because they're too busy to do it. So they don't care, right? The point is to make sure that you continue to give every bit of your life source energy till you get down to the bottom. And because they want you to live a long life, they provide you with more and more escapism tools that act as supplements for this, right? That's the supplementation. When you lose your wife, right? Why does everybody just collapse? Why does a person working on that 70% energy, that has a loved one there, why does the loved one, when the loved one goes, do they drop to 20% energy? Their life is over. That's just everything's fucked and anger and fuck and everything like that. It's because that 70% was funded by 50% of their energy, of your energy, right? And you've been given it, vice versa, right? So, or you've been taking too much, which is why then, if you've been taking too much of them, or they've been taking too much of you, right? Then you see why when they go, there's a massive transfer of energy, and it's all unbalanced and destabilized. It's like you have to be able to understand the interaction between you and the 3D world. That's it for me. I hope that will give some people who need this message at the moment the strength and the knowledge to know the work that can be done to move forward. This is a war. This is a war for your energy. This is a war for your soul. This is a war for your children's future. This is a war that is fought both physically, spiritually, energetically, emotionally, right? They have dumbed down you intellectually, which is part of the work that we're trying to do here, is teach ourselves again how to think, not what to think. Financially, they have entrapped us, and they have made finance and freedom mean the same thing, right? So there is no freedom in your mind without finance, right? You are free to go to Paris for holidays, but your finances say that you will probably end up going to the local river. You are free to eat caviar and duck l'orange at one of the top restaurants in your city, but the reality is you're probably going to have 2 chipolata sausages and some baked beans for dinner, because finances and freedom are tied universally together now. There is no such thing as freedom without finance these days, unless you want to be able to live in a love and light world where you are and leaving your body to go to the astral, which is why they see so many people able to do that. So they're like, okay, we're going to give you a form of escapism that means that you don't have to leave your 15-minute city. We're just going to give you really, really fast bandwidth, super bandwidth and fast internet in the cities, where you can stay in your house and you can project yourself into this 3D, virtual world, where you'll be able to be like Ready Player One, where you live vicariously through your cartoon character inside of this world, where you can be tall and slim, you can be male or female, you can be an alien from outer space, you can kill people, you can do all these things in that world, right? Because that's the goal, right? That total energetic control. Because we're nearly at the stage now where they don't need us to mine their products for them anymore. They're pretty close to getting that AI robot technology to be actually able to do the physical work that, if you believe stories like the Anunnakis and stuff like that, where we were built and designed to do the work for races, right? We weren't DNA altered. We were actually gene edited and built to be a slave race from the get-go. Otherwise, you have to believe in the Immaculate Conception story of God building everyone in 7 days, more or less, yeah. Which is like, okay, then there's a lot of interference, right? Then we have to believe that there's massive amounts of interference from a divine blueprint, because why would God build a sun and then build my skin not to be able to take the sun after 10 minutes? Like, that wouldn't have been on his thing, like, oh, what I'll do is I'll build a sun to warm the earth, but what I'll also do is I'll build their skin to burn badly and give them cancer and die horrendously for it if they don't put a white thick cream on the biggest organ of their body. If they put that white thick cream all over the organ, then the sun won't have as much reaction for it. Reckon that was in his blueprint? Probably not. Or evolution is the other story, the evolution of, like, come from a monkey, evolved up to things. How many lions get sunburned? Do you know what I mean? Like, so we are not. We haven't evolved. We haven't evolved well at all. I mean, otherwise, why would your nose nearly burn off? Why do you see so much cancer around people's noses and faces and heads wherever the sunlight's hitting them? Right. That's all an issue, all a construct, all a breakdown of this all the way through. So, if you know somebody out there that needs this conversation, please make sure you send it to them. don't have to imply that you think that they need help. Again, like I said, when you're at the bottom, when people are down here in this realm, the last thing they need to be told is you need to do the work. You need to get some help. Here's me helping you, right? It's their journey. They have to choose to use some of this energy that on the way up. They have to taper it off and try and get that sine wave, right? But there's lots of ways to get help out there. This is not professional advice. I don't have one of their bullshit pieces of paper to say on the wall, some of these people are great people. I met a psychiatrist the other day at one of the Living Council remedies. Seemed like a lovely person. That's not to take away from the training that they've done. But what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily mean that the credentials that they've got is from lived life experience. Just like the credentials that I've got from lived life experience means that I have the level of knowledge to be able to accurately assess you or give you the help that you need. Do not muck around with it with mental health. Do not take my word as gospel. Do not start doing what I just said to do here until you have a full plan and full support to do it, or you are reached to the point of rock bottomness where you're 5% like I was, gave you like you have to do this. I have had help along the way from my wife doing lots of research. My wife is an shit clearer, she calls herself, so she will log into me and help me clear the shit out of your brain, the interference out of my brain, that white noise that stops me from being able to hear my true voice. My true voice then tells me, able to help me dissect what it is I need to work on and where I need to go in my past. But if you're not ready for that, and she was to clear that white noise out of your head tomorrow, and your trauma just suddenly pops up, just boom, and that's the only thing you can hear, it's a daunting place to be, right? And a lot of people that say they're ready, she won't work on them anymore. She's got to go through a lot of process with them to make sure that they are ready. Otherwise, they'll just run harder. They'll run harder back to their supplementation, their escapism. They'll run harder back to it than they've ever had because they want to silence that voice in their mind because they're just not ready to actually go into that box that we talked about, all right? So it's not easy. It's not fun, but it's why I say stop shit posting trauma feed information to help other people have the same shit trauma feed information, right? Because if you don't have a remedy, or you're at least not working towards it, then all you're doing is feeding the fear, which eventually somewhere along the line drains your energy emotionally, physically, right? And then you end up supplementing in one way or another. You end up supplementing more. You might be a 100k runner and say, I'm super healthy because I'm a 100k runner. But 100k runners are some of the people that have got the worst demons, because that's why they're running all the time. Because they want to keep themselves in a constant state of not being able to think about, what's going on in this world, right? So they're just as deep and darker people, the gym junkies that have to sit in front of the gym looking at themselves all day long while they crank their weights. They're not thinking at the same time about the deep, dark, different things. They're trying to escape their reality by doing something. Any type of escapism can be possible, right? It's not just even coming on here every day and watching me to make it feel like you're getting information, right? Plenty of people watch me as entertainment, right? They say it's for knowledge. Oh, this guy's talking the truth. He's got the knowledge. But what do you do with it? Because all the knowledge in the world just makes you a library, and libraries are boring, and people say, shh. All right? So if you don't take action with that knowledge that we put out there and actually start dissecting your own life and being the change that you want to see, then you can expect to cycle in that loop. And the more that they frequency interfere, the more that this shit tightens, the more that they control that they take, the smaller that loop, and more and round. We're going to keep losing people. We're going to keep losing people to suicide. Those numbers are going to go up because this energy is thick and it's wild, and we've got to do whatever we can to get the maximum amount of that. Because the other thing about that is the more supplementation that you have, the more controllable you are. So if finance equals freedom, that's their control. If medication or supplement of the cost of medication is because your body's diseased and your emotional state's not right? So if your psychologist is paid for, if your psychiatrist is paid for, or if all of those things aren't possible in a war situation, you are controlled, you are coercible, you are in their power struggle, in their power system, right? That's what they do. They want you to have more and more of that. if they want to take alcohol away, if they want to take drugs away, if they want to take cigarettes away, if they want to, if we have a pandemic and the boats from China with our Panadol can't get here, or the insulin that you need, or the puffers that you need, anything that you need from somebody else is relying on them. So they love saying, oh yeah, you're operating on 5%, we'll fill you up with the other 95%, because that's the other level of coercion. If I don't have finances, I can't buy my medication. I can't get it because we're locked down. So everybody's got to get a jab, hurry up, so we can unlock the country so that we can get the medical supplies in that we need. It's you anti-vaxxers that are causing us to have a lockdown longer than what it is, 'cause 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah, sure. That's that mentality, right? That's that desperate nature to make sure that they can still get what they need to function at a level where their fight or flight's not making them wig out, right? So it's not just personal against us. It's actually about coercion and about control and about the system providing you with what you need to survive when your bucket of fucks is nearly empty. Have a great day. Hope this helps. Reach out if you need any more information. I've got plenty of links of different groups and different people that I've used for information, for energetic healing sessions, for emotional things, some local, mostly online, and they have made a massive difference, all right? Huge difference to helping me, but they are just little pieces, little steps, on my way for me doing the work to get as close as I can back to him and making sure this guy doesn't get to make all the decisions, right? Doesn't get to believe that he knows everything about everything and he's in control. Bullshit. Have a good one. Bye.